Well, you know, they always say boots on the ground. Oh, so we're not afraid of boots on the ground if we have to have. We had boots on the ground last night at a very high level, actually. We're not afraid of it. We don't mind saying it. But we're going to make sure that that country is run properly. We're not doing this in vain.
Joining us now is Matthew Bartlett, Republican strategist and former Trump appointee to the State Department. Matthew, you served in the administration the last time around when these conversations were percolating, but ultimately did not come to fruition. But what did you learn from working around this region about what an action like what happened yesterday, what that can do to the stability of the region?
Yeah, great question. I mean, this was a notion, as you mentioned, the first term, where you had Venezuela just a collapse internally. I remember in coordination meetings talking about, you know, the exodus of people being called something of an X-ray of the country, just people coming out, working to get medicine in, refugees. When countries collapse, they don't do it in neat and orderly ways. Now, flash forward, we have regime change. And what does that mean? We just saw a press conference yesterday that was jaw-dropping of the president assuming responsibility, saying we're going to run a country, a very difficult task. So, again, I think we've seen kinetic action, and good people of good faith can have disagreements whether or not this was justified or not. But more importantly, what comes next? And I think that's where the questions continue to linger.
The thing that we kept talking about yesterday was it is regime change in a very haphazard way, that you just cut the head of the snake off, but then, like, don't expect a bunch of heads to grow out of that, right? You see the now de facto leader, it's very unclear if she is Delcy Rodriguez, saying there's one president, Nicolas Maduro, give him back. We don't want to be slaves again. We don't want any of this colonialism. Get out of our country. While at the same time, Trump is saying, she's gonna do what we say. It does not appear that they thought in any way, maybe some people did, but Donald Trump did not think about what the after action would actually look like. And that is very dangerous because the regime, and the fact that we can even show people video from the state-sponsored TV shows that the regime is well and good, even though Maduro is gone.
Yeah, I mean, Eugene, could not agree more. At a time where it's really important to be precise about what we are communicating to the world and to the people of Venezuela, it seems as if the president was, again, fly by the seat of your pants. We're going to run the country. We're going to take the oil. We're going to make great money. I mean, just what is the message that you are sending to the people of Venezuela? As we saw, I mean, just a mixed message about who is in charge, who will be in charge. We had again Machado, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, kind of shooing her off. So that's very concerning. It seems as if a flawless execution to take out a narco-terrorist leader. That might be the easy part. Now, what comes next? And so, again, that's where it's always a slippery slope.
If it was about the people of Venezuela, they would have, in the hours of 4 a.m. to 11 a.m., when this press conference was supposed to be held, communicated with somebody, anybody, and talked to them about what comes next and put them first, right? That's what would have happened. That's not what
happened. Have that leader stand right there and say...
Because the fight would have been very quick, right? To Miami.
So, Matthew, you were just talking about the message to the Venezuelan people. I'm just wondering about the message to the American people, because there was something that we played from the presser that the president said that just jumped out at me. We don't mind saying it, but we're going to make sure that that country is run properly. This is the man who is running a country where just the other day, millions of Americans lost their health care subsidies. We are about 28 days from the government shutting down, and there is no prospect that the government won't shut down. This country has so many problems that preceded him, but also are because of him. And a lot of the people who voted for him because they believed him when he said, we're going to put America first. We're going to put Americans first. We are not about the rest of the world. We're not about forever wars. We're not about taking care of anybody else. And yet we just watched that man say, we are going to run a country basically to take the oil, but we're going to run another country when that man can't even run the country that he is running himself.
Fair point. It seems as if we have a lot on our plate here in America, and nobody saw Venezuela. Again,
Right.
Who was more surprised yesterday, Maduro or the American people? They woke up and said, what just happened?
Mm-hmm.
We are overtaking a country. Like you just said, much of the MAGA base it comes off the notion of stop doing this. We don't want to be
Right.
doing this. And this is where, what you just said, strangely enough, sounds a lot like Steve Bannon. And that's where you have,
Strange bedfellow.
strange bedfellow. Because guess what? There might be some truth to that. That over a quarter of a century we may have been overextended around the world.